Hey, it's the Jimmy Doane Show. This is Counselor Curtis, everybody, and it must be 4 o'clock on Wednesday or Sunday because we are now live for your listening pleasure. Every week, twice a week, we review the news, try to make it a little fun. If you've got a topic you'd like us to talk about, send us an email or send a message. Hey, Uncle Bill. And we will we'll pick it up. So today is the second day of June 2019. I'm here with Jimmy Doane.
Jimmy Doane's here with Counselor Curtis.
There he is. So, also I will post a time-stamped copy of this up on YouTube about an hour or two after the show, so you can skip around to the topics. So what's happening?
Lots of stuff happening.
Yeah?
First of all, in my list that was from a couple days ago, the New Zealand Human Rights Commission says that the message, "It's okay to be white," has no place in their country. And this started because controversy began when "It's okay to be white" T-shirts and stickers were sold on a New Zealand auction site. I guess it's kind of like eBay, only it's called Trade Me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this T-shirt,
Right.
And it says
It's kind of like White Lives Matter, but...
Yeah, only it's okay to be white. Well, boy, I tell you, the let's see, who was it? The Human Rights Commission blew up.
Really?
Yeah, they said they don't see anything funny about this. And they
Maybe it wasn't intended to be funny.
Well, no, it was. Where the sales
How do
pitch,
they know? Go ahead.
the sales pitch on the site says, "Wear this shirt as a white person to troll your local communists," or "Wear this shirt as a brown person to troll stuck-up middle-class urbanites. Either way, it's funny." That's the description.
Oh, well, I mean, they did it wrong. They should have said, wear this T-shirt to show that it's okay to be white, and that if you're sensitive about it, people should respect your sensitivity.
Maybe. I don't know. See, they were trying to sell this to colored people.
No, I know. I got you.
Color also.
Sure,
it's okay to be white.
I mean, whatever.
So anyway, there's no place in New Zealand because it conveys, quote, "a message of intolerance, racism, and division." And this is the Human Rights Commission has come up with this. They read it as this horrible thing. To its credit, the Trade Me website refused to pull the item. They kept it up there. They said, heck with you. We're gonna. And of course, the guy that runs the website there says, it may be removed if they get enough complaints. But of course, what's going to happen now. The vast array of social justice, "I'm always offended for everything," are going to sit there and complain about this. So maybe it'll go down. I guess, of course, it'd have to be shipped from New Zealand. Well, of course, we could have I doubt if it's copyrighted. We'd probably get one ordered up on Print Your Own T-shirt or whatever that place is.
Yeah. Well, it probably is copyrighted over there anyway.
Scroll.
Yeah. Well, it may not be novel enough to be copyrighted.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Black Lives Matter wasn't copyrighted.
You can get away with some really some common stuff.
Really, one that was interesting. Of course, it showed up in Tom. In the oh, come on, I'm drawing a blank now. Jeez, I'm sorry. This is what happens when you are a loser in the Mensa test. You can't remember anything anymore. But it was the Tom Hanks movie, where Forrest Gump, where he wiped his face and handed it back to somebody, and the face was on it, the smiley face or whatever that it was every place
right
for a while. Now, I don't know if that was copyrighted or not, but
right. Well, like I know Bruce Buffer has "It's Time."
Really?
Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
Exactly.
Well, that
guarantee you.
Well, except for the fact that it was used in The Shining.
I bet you they paid.
You think so?
Yeah. that's one of those things.
That's funny because Jack Nicholson peered through the door. Here's Johnny. Okay. So
Might have
anyway,
been modified enough, but go ahead.
yeah, it was a troll. It's Okay to Be White was a troll started by 4chan in 2017 as a way to trigger leftists into revealing their own anti-white bigotry. So, I don't know if it's the equivalent of wearing a MAGA hat, but
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Mrs. Jimmy and I were talking about it, and we think that it'll only take another few years for all the SJWs to sort of wear themselves out.
Really?
Yeah. I think it'll. I mean, how many years can you scream at somebody about?
Well, that's true. Of course,
Now, of course, there's new people coming up. so-
Right. There's new people coming up, and they're being indoctrinated, and with in the school systems and so forth. I mean,
You always say that. I don't think of the schools as an indoctrination system.
you don't?
No, look, they're not. Look, it may have that effect in some ways.
Then it is.
Well, okay, but to me, I try to measure the intent of the system and the intent of the people involved, as opposed to.
Okay. I suppose maybe you.
Look, how about this? I'll agree with you. It's a system that doesn't generally promote meritocracy, and there are some real core problems with it.
Right.
But it's concept at its core is something positive. People want to educate people. They want there to be they do. At their core.
It wasn't founded that way. In case it's the old Prussian system that was.
Maybe not. Look, there's a huge number of people out there. Look, even if it was founded, let's say it was founded in one particular place on some kind of Prussian model or something, so that the kids could do well in the military or something like that.
Or in the war in the factories.
Okay, but then it is morphed into what it is now, which is there's a whole bunch of people who feel like education needs to be provided by the government because it should be free or something. Like they see it as a public good. Really, a public good.
I know
that economic argument, but I mean it's fallacious from my perspective and yours as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because education is valuable, which means that a market will provide it.
Absolutely.
Which means that you want a micro to provide it, which means then it provides all the benefits of the market, the competition and innovation and.
Well, of course, what the government does is to co-opt the private sector by providing it quote free unquote, which of course it's not even remotely free.
Right, they've muscled in on the whole thing. They charge you even if you don't have kids, they charge you for the education. They pay it to particular providers, and in some ways they have muscled out the competition. But here's the thing: what's going to happen is they're going to be overwhelmed with competition very soon, because online you can take a course on anything. You can learn to do anything online. So it won't be long until somebody figures out how to do accreditation online.
Accreditation, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I can. We kind of got off topic here.
I know. I'm just.
That's a whole. Let me tell you, we could spend the whole hour on that.
Right. I'm just saying. Once they find accreditation, and once they do that online,
there is actually one now.
There are a couple, but it's not anywhere near like it is in the university system yet. But once it is, then all the public schools will have to compete with what's online.
Yeah.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, that's right. Good luck with that.
So school will be free whether we want it or not. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Kim Jong Un executes his man in America.
Boy,
this is amazing. This is special envoy to the U.S. is killed by firing squad for quote betraying the supreme leader over failed Trump summit, along with 4 other officials, and the interpreter is sent to a labor camp. This is Kim Jong Un has executed his envoy to the U.S. for betraying the supreme leader as part of a ruthless purge of officials after the dictator's failed summit with Donald Trump. This somebody, her current name, is said to have been shot by a firing squad in March at the airport after having been won over to the U.S. during a nuclear negotiations with Trump. The top diplomat who accompanied Kim on his private train ahead of the summit in Vietnam was one of 4 senior ministry officials executed at the airfield. The other officials were not named, but allegedly became U.S. spies after the failed second negotiations between Trump and Kim Jong Un ended in February. I mean, here you are on the private train, trusted advisor, The interpreter was sent to a labor camp, of course, labor camp.
Yeah.
But can you imagine, you get off the train, or well, I guess at the airport, and as you're leaving the airport, the firing squad comes up, and kablamo. I mean, well, I guess that's one way to get loyalty. Jesus.
Yeah, scare the bejesus out of
I mean,
them.
I can't. It just blows me away that. Now I don't know if this, it's one of these things. It's conceivable that it's fake news, but But there were a couple of different sources on this, so who knows. Moving on to Boeing. Boeing faces doubtful airline chiefs in mission to restore faith. After 2 fatal crashes in 5 months involving its best-selling 737 MAX jet, Boeing sent a team to reassure airline bosses of its focus on safety at an annual gathering in Seoul, South Korea. They faced a tough crowd. And I can see why. I mean, unless they get all the regulators on board, they said, which of course is one of these things that's interesting to me when we talk about free market and that kind of stuff. The regulators, they want to have all the various countries with their regulators on airplane regulators and inspector people. They want to make sure that all of those people in the whole world sign off on the new 737 MAX.
Why would they give a crap about what the regulators want? Well, I mean, from my perspective, if I owned an airline, what I would want is my top engineers to tell me that the plane is safe, or the top pilots.
And they're certainly going to do that. I mean, they're certainly going to do that. But still, one of the things that you have to worry about, it seems to me, is the public. And you're sitting there and you're thinking you're getting on this 737 MAX.
Yeah, but we already had somebody like either Bill Gates or Warren Buffett came out and said that they would fly tomorrow on a 737 MAX, like right after the crash happened. Yeah. And when you get that kind of reassurance from somebody like that, it's look, yeah. How bad could the changes have been made? I mean, what did they do? They screwed up the internal controls or something, or
the software? They said it was all in software.
Okay.
I mean, this whole thing is super advanced, and it's all fly-by-wire, and everything's all they got 1 million sensors on the plane to tell everything what to do, and apparently at least one of them. And there's been some other scuttlebutt talk from a couple of the engineers that says some of this stuff was not entirely tested thoroughly, but. Of course, you wonder how much testing goes on. I mean, how much testing can you do? And of course, when you think about it, not to say that this is a good thing, but there were an awful lot of flights. I don't know how many flights there were before there were any crashes. There were 2 crashes, but there was probably 50,000 flights.
Yeah, and you know as well as I do, they do a statistical analysis when they do the testing.
Yeah.
And it's thousands of individual tests for sure.
Right.
And they measure the error and all that kind of stuff. And so you got to figure by the time that they're investing all of the money and effort and time to make the plane and make it commercial, that they are convinced that it's safe. Because as you know, the worst thing possible for an airline is to have a big crash.
Right.
I mean, that's...
Well, as somebody says, that the pilot is on board, and he wants to
the pilot is on board.
If nothing else, the pilot's going to damn sure do everything he can to save his ass.
Exactly.
And so, but I just think that it's interesting to me. I'm thinking that there's going to be this aura of have they really fixed it for the public?
Well, maybe.
But
like you said, they'll publish 10,000 flights since the last explosion or whatever.
Well, except they're all grounded right now.
Okay.
I mean, there's no flights going up apparently right now.
Well,
I did notice one place that some nondescript airline, I forget what it is, that has ordered 60 of these things, has said, bring them on. We're ready to take.
So and then once you do the corporate advertisement, which comes out and said, we are Boeing and we heard the public and talked about this, and we grounded all the planes and we took the appropriate measures and we fixed this situation because we love you and fly Delta or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting because what's interesting to me about this is that virtually all the heads of the various airlines at this meeting in Korea were saying, we want more regulatory action. We want the regulators to sign off on this. That's what they said.
Airplane regulations, man. You look and it's the stupidest. It has to be. They still wake you up right before the plane lands. Like, they still wake you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how is my being awake during the landing gonna affect, like, if there's a crash, I guarantee you I'll wake up, right? I mean, that's...
No, you won't.
Or not. Right.
I got a newsflash for you. Even if it's a very slow landing at only 150 miles an hour.
That's it. And so it's just the stuff that they make you do at the airlines still, they still make you, sit in those cattle lines when they could just make you take a number and you could hang out. They make you they wake you up for no reason except to put your seat back up, which it only goes back 4 inches. That's not stopping anybody from getting out of the aisle or anything. So, and then, at least they could offer you like a life insurance policy or something, right? Last chance.
Yeah, last chance, right. Okay, moving on to airplanes. So this is another thing. Here's an inside look at the U.S. military's Doomsday plane, which can endure the aftermath of a nuke blast.
What do you mean?
Apparently, the aftermath. Obviously, it can't. I don't think it could. This is
survive the nuclear blast.
Actual nuclear explosion.
Right. Yeah.
Which, of course, brings up another point. There's no aircraft quite like this. Apparently, what it is, it's an air-flying Pentagon. Basically, no windows, no nothing, just all kinds of. So they can control all the armies and navies and everything from this airplane. And I guess.
Ooh, this sounds like a good plot to a new 007 movie.
Yes.
Get a hold of this airplane.
Well, it gets better. Affectionately known as the Doomsday plane.
Great.
A modified Boeing 747, Boeing again, 747, is used to transport the Secretary of Defense, and the airplane is born and bred for battle. It stands nearly it's a 747, and it's capable of enduring the immediate aftermath of a nuclear detonation. But I say probably maybe 20, 30 miles away maybe. But I'm saying now this brings up another thing. It's like a backup Pentagon, they say, and there's always one plane on alert, ready to go 24/7 days a week. So there's 4 of them that are apparently identical. Pentagon in the air. And it's interesting because the plane was designed to do all this. It's using 1980s technology, late 1980s. The identical planes which have been and this is the other thing, at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska had been in operation since 1980. So if you're going to nuke anything, you nuke Offutt Air Force Base.
There you go.
I mean, boom, that's all 4 of them are gone. I mean, where are they again? It's right here in this article.
Top secret.
Top secret. God almighty. So, okay. Moving on. The trailing candidates out of the 22, I think, currently that are running for the Democrat.
Oh yeah, I had a field of them here pulled up.
Did you?
For to see if you could identify them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you here's 21 of them.
Okay.
All right. So can you see them from here?
I can see them.
Okay. So who do you got here?
Well, we got Bernie.
Right.
And Kamala.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's Klobuchar, I think, right?
Okay, could be.
Okay.
And I don't know who the blonde is.
That's Gillibrand.
Oh, Gillibrand, right.
Gillibrand.
Okay. Gillibrand, whatever she is, yeah. And then there's, is that Buttigieg or whatever?
No. That is Michael Bennett.
Oh yeah, boy, that's a name. That's a name to remember. Well, anyway, we don't have to go all through.
Okay, right.
But geez, how do you reckon? So anyway, apparently, as you would expect, with 21 or so, 20 of them running, the most. I mean, generally speaking, if everybody was rated, they would get 5%. But that's not going to happen. So I mean, there's some of them that are under 1%.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So. Their frustration at how the Democratic National Committee is managing the upcoming presidential debates is bursting into the open as several long-shot candidates say the party is stacking the process against them. Well, but it's interesting because for the first debates, which happened, I think, at the end of this month,
yeah,
the cutoff has been known for months on what you had to do. I mean, you had to have certain
signatures,
number of donors, signatures, something, money, whatever it is. So what's interesting is that the DNC are essentially selecting the presidential, in a way.
Well, yeah. Well, they're the first tier. Like they did last time. They did 2 tiers.
Yeah, I know. So they're certainly going to do at least that this time. anyway, this they're worried about transparency. They want to know how these people are being selected. But of course, I said they laid out the rules, and apparently we're going to see.
Oh yeah, you don't have to worry about it. As I said before, in today's age of communication, everybody can have their own website. They can have constant 24/7 town hall running.
Well, they're all, not only that, what they're also doing, which is kind of interesting, is of course it's bubbling up and down. It's kind of like the Republicans were, when Trump was running. There was 17 of them, I think, when that started off. But it's interesting because they have to game the system a little bit. For instance, they have to have a certain number of donors, and so they have, you can donate $1, and it has to be from 20 different states. Something like that, make sure that you have you don't have all your donors from New York City.
What are the odds they developed this algorithm based on who they wanted to select?
I have no idea because so at least 200 people in each of at least 20 states, 65,000 unique donors. So I mean, if you raise $65,000 at $1 each, you pretty much got that covered. So anyway, they're upset and they're tearing into each other about this, and it'll be interesting to see. Here we've got almost 4 weeks to go before the first one, and it's going to be fascinating to see who's on first.
Yeah,
because they are battling it out, and it's interesting because almost every day there's another story because the news people are begging for stories, and everybody's going to Iowa and they are juggling all the time. So and so's in the lead, and it just reminds me of a horse race. I mean, and coming around the bend is Pete Petto, and he's faded fast, and all of this kind of stuff. And I think somebody could just.
Everybody likes it. It is a horse race, but I think that this first debate is going to show a bunch of. I think it's going to be very tepid. I think it's going to be
really.
Yeah, I think they're going to go after Trump. Everybody's going to try to make an agreement to not go after one another. They're going to say go after Trump because their policies are very similar, and so I really don't see any of that. And then you got Mr. Too Nice Bernie. He doesn't even want to say anything bad about Hillary's emails or whatever.
Right.
So
he might have learned his lesson on that one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but. We'll see. Like I said, I don't expect them to go for blood at this one.
I'll be interested to see that because I think they might.
But the second tier.
Remember now, there's going to be a moderator.
Okay.
And the moderator is going to ask questions.
Okay.
So they're going to ask, policy questions of these people.
I'm just saying, they'll say something like, well, anybody on this stage would be better than President Trump on this issue. We all agree that there's the need to be health care for everybody. We all agree that health care is primary right for everybody, and we all like children, and that's what it'll be. It'll be a love fest. And now the second tier people, they may go after some of the first two people because you got to pick somebody off in order to move up.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that's for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. How that works out. So
I hope they put Beto on the main stage.
All right. Now the big news, the big Trump news, is something that's kind of interesting. He announces new Mexican tariffs in response to migrants. This is unbelievable. Apparently, within about 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, a 5% tariff on everything coming from Mexico is going to be instituted. And there's a couple of things here. And then on July 1st, another 5%. And August 1st, another 5%, up to a total of 25% on everything coming. Well, I see massive problems here.
Okay.
Well, number one, there's stuff that goes back and forth over the border. Parts that are assembled and then unassembled or whatever they do. There's that kind of stuff. Then there are there's $390 billion a year in trade we do that Mexico does. We get stuff from them, $390 billion worth. So they're going to put a 5% tariff on all of that stuff, basically. And that's a fair chunk of money. But how do you decide? I mean, certainly they're going to have to be, I would guess that people are going to be screaming bloody murder about some exceptions. In other words, this is not really an item, just because it's coming over the border, it's not from Mexico, it's from China, or I don't know, who knows. And then, of course, when you realize that there's probably 1,000 trucks a day, 18-wheelers a day, that come through the borders with stuff from Mexico, how are they going to, what do you do? I mean, you photocopy the invoice or whatever, the bill of lading, and then figure out how you're going to put the 5% on there?
Oh yeah, they know that won't be difficult to keep track. No, they weigh all those trucks and everything. It's quite. They keep track of everything. There's invoice 6 different ways: pick up, drop off, in between, all that kind of stuff. But you're right. I mean, this will create a gigantic distortion in the economy. The question becomes, how long does this go on? That is, he's obviously trying to use it to put pressure on Mexico to do something, but he's been quite vague about what he wants done. He wants them to stop the flow. Well, good luck with that.
There's another group, another train, whatever you want to call it, from Guatemala starting up again. There another bunch of people are supposed to be moving out there, and well, there's so many things wrong with this. Because of course, one of the things is, how do they collect the money? Who actually pays? It's the guy in this. It's in other words, if you're sending stuff from Mexico to IBM, does IBM pay the tariff?
Well, you know how it works. The company can't get the product any cheaper just willy-nilly. So unless their profit margins are high, they have to raise the price.
Right.
And they have to pass that on to the consumer.
Us.
Right.
So we're paying it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the second problem with this whole thing is, where does the president get off just willy-nilly charging us all a bunch of cash?
What he did is, once again, national emergency.
Mm-hmm.
National emergency. Yeah, this is under the National Emergency Act.
Right.
I forget, it's under a 1977 law to impose tariffs on all imports from certain countries if he cites a, quote, national emergency. And everything's always a national. And of course, he's talking about the people flooding over the border.
Sort of getting the hang of it now. Yeah, and that's right. And he's already declared this particular thing a national emergency, so I guess it's just part and parcel to it. The only thing I can say beneficial or positive about this is that if you're going to do trade wars, you might as well do them all at once. Because once he organizes some kind of a deal with China, if he does, which we anticipate, then Mexico will feel less threatened. They'll say, oh, well, he doesn't really like tariffs. Like right now, he gets to go out there and say, I love tariffs. Tariffs are great. And Mexico pays for them. And China pays for them. And he gets to really bluff hard, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Once he makes a deal, if he comes off of his game with China, Mexico will see that. And now it may not make all the difference, but it weakens his hand, is all I'm saying. It strengthens his hand to play all the trade wars at one time.
All right, maybe.
Because then he gets to pretend like that he really likes us and this is status quo, and this is the way he wants it to be. And because it's a game of chicken. At the end of the day, trade war is a game of chicken, and both people have to turn at the end, or it's a catastrophe.
It's a catastrophe. That's the thing. It could be a catastrophe. One of the things that does happen, I don't know to what extent people are sensitive on some prices, but on some things, if it's a 5 or 10% increase, people just won't buy it.
It could devastate whole industry. That's why I say it's a huge distortion, and literally you could have key companies fall or rise because of the situation, and that'll just have to be undone after the trade goes back to normal.
Yeah.
But who knows where it's going to go?
Well, that's the thing. It's a great law of unintended consequences.
Well, I mean, who even knows where Trump's going to try to bring it? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him in government long enough to know how he really is going to play this.
I find it kind of interesting in a way that there's all these complaints from Congress, but they have the ability to do something about it.
They absolutely could limit Trump's power to ratify these treaties. I mean, they have to.
The simple fact is the treaties have to be
That's
ratified
what I mean.
by the Senate.
Right. So, they can't really bitch about it unless they're going to do something about it. So.
And of course they're all they care about is being reelected. Here's another thing that's kind of interesting, I thought. A 16-year-old girl is facing child pornography charges for making a sex video of herself.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. Maryland's highest court will soon decide whether 16-year-old girl SK can face child pornography charges for making a video of herself performing a sex act, well, I tell you, on a male friend, all consensual and everything.
Yeah.
And so they've charged her. Apparently, she sent it to some friends. It got out. They reported her. So the friends reported her like to the principal or something, and showed the video. And later reported to the school resource officer. I'm sorry, to the resource officer. This is the cop. Mm-hmm. And the only person charged, and she's the only one that's charged. Now, I don't know about the guy. When you have this sex video, I guess they didn't charge him.
Well, it depends how old he is. If he's a minor, then that
16.
makes sense.
Yeah. The Special Court of Appeals upheld her conviction, ruling that the consensual nature of the sex was irrelevant, as of the fact that it's not illegal. But it was taking a video and sending it to other people constitute distribution of child pornography. So that's what the court said. That's what she's being arrested for, is distribution of child pornography. And of course, on the other hand,
you're going to protect her from herself.
Yeah, right. Well, that's it. These guys in the probation and a mandatory mental health evaluation were reasonable outcomes. They thought, people were saying.
Right.
But what's interesting, of course, if she's a sex offender, if she gets convicted,
yeah.
I mean, guess what?
Can you imagine?
I mean, geez, you can't live, you can't go to school? I mean,
or get a job
or anything.
Move to play within 1,000 feet of
lots of stuff.
Freaking anything.
But I mean, she's still in school, can't go to school.
Oh, she'll be expelled. I mean, all kinds of stuff. She'll probably be expelled anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, this country still has this incredibly oversensitive reaction to sex acts, and especially where it involves minors. We over here, we have this thing like a 17-year-old is a baby of some type, and this girl's 16. She obviously knew what she was doing.
Yes.
In France, I don't know if this would be a story. And where the parents, you want to blame somebody, there you go.
Yeah.
Find the parents. But to try to punish this girl under the criminal justice system, it's like we live in a society where sex is like, it's just sort of illegal in some ways.
Victorian.
Yeah, well, it's monastic or something.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's all, and you can certainly appreciate it, because in this day and age, I don't care who you are, anybody, 8-year-olds can get on the internet and download every vagina known to mankind.
Yeah, look, it's not as big of a problem as our legal system makes it out to be. That's
right.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
Our legal system reacts as though it is murder, basically, or worse. Really, because if you murder somebody and you get out, you don't have to register as a murderer everywhere you move for the rest of your life.
Interesting. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. And I would imagine,
even after you're off probation, even after you paid your debt to society, whatever it is.
What if you're a rapist?
Oh, you absolutely do, for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah.
Every time you move in the state of Florida.
No. If you're a rapist, that is a crime.
Yeah.
But is it a sex offender crime?
Absolutely.
It is.
Oh yeah, of course.
I didn't know that.
What do you mean? Huh?
No, right? No, because sex offenders generally are like pedophiles and stuff like that.
All right. So in Florida, there's a couple of different levels.
Okay.
We've separated out into sexual predators.
Okay.
And sexual offenders.
Okay.
Okay. And sexual predators are anybody who actually committed some type of forced touching act, like rape. That's
okay.
A normal rape, what you would think of. Sexual offender is someone who committed a technical rape, like they had consensual sex with a 16-year-old.
Okay.
Okay, but they still have to register every time that they move. Like within 24 or 48 hours, they have to go to the driver's license office and the sheriff's office in the county where they are and register and clear their living arrangements and all kinds of stuff. And they can't live within 1,000 feet of a school or a church or a convenience store or something. It's
Whoa, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Now you can imagine if you couldn't live within 1,000 feet of a Starbucks, you'd be out.
That's what I'm saying. Look, the one thing about convenience stores is they're convenient,
right.
And so they're within 1,000 feet of each other.
Right.
So there are plenty of places where look, I think I missed. I don't think you have to. I don't think the convenience store thing is a thing for those purposes.
Well, I can tell you, in this town,
Uh-huh.
the churches are about 1,000 feet apart.
Right. Well, and there's that covers another type of criminal situation, that in terms of where you are when you sell drugs. If you're within 1,000 feet of a church, school, or a convenience store, it's an aggravator. It makes the crime worse. That's why, and there's almost no place in Gainesville that's not within 1,000 feet of one of those spots.
Yeah.
But this is a little different. I'm sort of exaggerating, but it's still, the point is, it's hideously, horrifyingly horrible to be labeled any type of sex offender. And you know, this poor girl, obviously she's not an actual deviant, at least not from what we can see here. She's just an active 16-year-old.
Right.
But I would not be surprised if our system criminalizes her and wrecks her life.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Now this I thought was interesting. Disney not alone in this. Disney threatens to boycott Georgia.
Yeah.
But partners with China, which puts Muslims in internment camps. Well, it's interesting because a lot of actresses and actors have come out, famous, you know, and said, "Well, we're not gonna film in Georgia anymore."
Yeah.
And of course, then you look at their filmography and you find out that they did films in Tunisia and in other countries where it's whatever the ban is far worse than anything in Georgia.
Kill gay people and stuff.
I mean, throw them off buildings and everything.
Yeah.
And they had no problem in those places.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe they'll
hypocrisy
stop working in those places as well once they figure it out. They probably just don't know, or they haven't thought about it. I mean, what if you're a 16-year-old famous actress or a 25-year-old?
Well, some of these are in their 20s and 30s and 40s.
Okay.
I mean, a couple of them.
Well, they should know, but
Yeah, they certainly they know.
well, look, then it's selective grandstanding, and
You can imagine if you are filming in Tunisia, let's say,
okay.
and as you're walking through the town, all the women are in hijabs, and so I'm thinking this is a Muslim community.
Well, yeah, but you know, at that point, you tell yourself that the women want to be dressed like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I thought this. They profit from doing business in China. Disney also filmed movies in the Middle Eastern countries with stricter abortion laws than Georgia. They recently filmed movies in Jordan, United Arab Emirates, and according to a newspaper. But it's interesting to me that the hypocrisy on this for these actresses. I mean, here's the deal: you're going to make another Star Wars film in Tunisia, and the star is going to get paid, $20 million. You're not going? I'm boycotting it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how they've been threatening these boycotts, but they also all threatened to move to Canada if Trump got elected.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah.
well, look, I can tell you, Georgia has been just booming in terms of its production.
Right.
So the momentum is, I would think, undeniable at this point for Georgia, and you could, I would think, have large swaths of the industry boycotted, and it would still survive and thrive there. But we'll see. And of course, there's now 7 other states that are jumping on board with it. What are they not going to film in Mississippi or Arkansas or any of those states now?
Right. Yeah. Well, that could
Alabama.
be. Yeah, that's right. They do have. I mean, it is kind of interesting when you see the big complaint was, what's the Disney CEO doing, making a rule for Georgia? We're not going to film anymore in Georgia, kind of thing. If they don't lighten up, and well,
he's a private company director, so he can.
Well,
or
it's
not private, public.
No, it's
well, and then he might get called out by the board or something.
Yeah. Well, it will be interesting to see, and of course the market will figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of Disney, you can't wear Star Wars costumes at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, that's weird to me. Like, what they're worried not going to be able to tell the patrons from the workers.
That's exactly what they're worried about.
Well, why don't they just give the workers something special and different? Make them all from the planet Disney or something, and have a particular star uniform that's not for sale anywhere.
Well, of course, they have to understand this is it's Star Wars Land is enforcing the theme park's official costume policy, but the park requests that guests 14 years of age or older not wear particularly costumes that look too much like Star Wars costumes, because they have all their
Oh, I see. Okay, because they don't want them fooling the kids.
Exactly.
Walking around, kids and saying, "Oh, you're part of the thing," and then they do something horrible.
Exactly. That's what they're worried about.
Okay.
For safety and everything. It's and of course, it's a frustrating rule. They say, especially since you can buy the costumes.
Well, look,
what they tell you is, if you buy the costume, but go outside to put it on.
If they're limiting it to 14 and older, that to me is okay.
Okay.
If you're going to tell a 6-year-old they can't wear their costume in there, to me that's like, what are you doing? But the 14-year-old distinction makes a difference, because you could see a 6-year-old looking at a 15-year-old and thinking that they're an adult,
right?
And that they're some official person. So, okay.
Yep. Well, I think they're mostly worried about the 33-year-old predators.
Right. Well, exactly. Step into my shuttle.
That's right. Okay, moving on to AOC.
Okay.
Federal tipped minimum wage of $2.13 is indentured servitude. Now, what is indentured servitude? Is that where you sign up?
Yeah.
You actually it's.
You see, I worked for you for 7 years. That was the old thing was.
Yeah.
Work for you for 7 years and then I'm free.
Right.
And you pay my passage to America.
Right. Yeah, and obviously you're going to pay for my food.
Right. Food and lodging for 7 years.
Yeah. The vast majority of states allow employers to pay workers below the federal minimum wage if they can make up the difference in tips. And I thought this was interesting. All labor has, and she says that all labor has dignity, and all the people, like all the wait staff and everybody should be, get a minimum $15 an hour. Now, this is interesting. I didn't bring it out here, but they've done a recent study in Seattle, and they found out they're losing business.
After they raised the minimum wage?
Yeah, they did. It went first to like 11, and then to 13, and now they've done an additional study, and they found out, guess what? We're losing business. Because what's happened is...
We don't even have to... Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what's happened is they've either laid people off or they've cut hours back on the part-time people.
Right.
If you were working, 28 hours a week, now you're working 20 hours a week.
Right.
So you got the...
Look, this is basic, this basic economics. You can't make the people more valuable by requiring the employers to pay them more. So the employers have to adjust. And the way they have to adjust is by firing people who aren't worth the $15 an hour.
Right.
And so it's a wage control, and it's going to fail.
Yeah.
And if you want the highest minimum wage in the world, in any country that I know of, is in Denmark, where it's like $25 an hour on average.
Oh yeah.
And they don't have a minimum wage law.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so this is just ugh.
Well, anyway, but what she says is, being so reliant on tips ultimately leaves workers more vulnerable to harassment and other types of labor violations. Well, no. She says if you have someone touch you, and it's the 28th of the month or the 29th of the month, you're all panicked. You're not going to say anything because your rent's due tomorrow.
Bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I have worked in a lot of bars as a bartender, as a waiter, and first of all, I can tell you, and I worked for 201 and for 213 an hour plus tips, and I can tell you that no question about it, I was clearing $6 to $8 an hour easily in the 80s as in doing which was more than minimum wage at the time. And then as a bartender, 15, 20, $25 an hour, no problem. You can make that kind of money. You're not, shoot, at one place that I worked, the owner kept all of my wages, the 201.
Yeah.
Every penny of it. And all I worked for was tips.
Huh.
And it was an arrangement we made where we were allowed to give away a certain number of drinks, and he would keep track of a certain number of drinks at a lower price to encourage people to come in. So we could buy $1 drinks or $2 drinks or something, and he would deduct that from our wages every month. The net result was that he kept all of the wages.
Right.
And
well, it's interesting you should mention this, because for years, and I don't know if this is true anymore, but for years, one of the most lucrative positions you could ever have was a hat check girl in New York City.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And you paid. It was like you walked in there and you had to pay $100 a night or something, or whatever it was, to be the hat checker.
Right, yeah.
I mean, there's no wage.
Right.
You checked hats, for God's sake.
To me, tipping is the way to go, and she's going to freaking ruin it if she raises the price up to some minimum wage. People will be like, well, I don't have to tip anymore. Because
well, you do. Let me tell you, it's funny you should mention this because that's the way it is in most of the rest of the world.
I know.
And it's an 18% gratuity tip, and it's interesting because it'll say on your bill, gratuity included,
right,
or not included,
right.
And most of the times it's included. And what you do in those particular cases, what you've learned is you still tip, believe it or not, even though they charge you already the 18%, but you tip like a dime. Or 25 cents or something. It's a little piece of loose change that you leave just to indicate.
An indicator or something.
It's an indicator that you had good
That
service.
to me is fucking bullshit. To me, I think the tips are the thing to work for to the extent that you can keep the connection direct between the customer and the server. That's where you want it, and that's where you want the payment to go back and forth between. You don't want this loopy thing, or like the worst ever is these restaurants I see now do this communist thing where they pool tips.
Yeah.
You go there, and I worked at one bar that did this, and it was horrible because I work really fast, and so I could make twice as much as somebody else. But no, that wasn't going to happen. We were going to pool the tips, and everybody got nonchalant. Everybody was like, whatever, because they're not really your customers at that point. They're the restaurant's customers.
I worked as a busboy where we pooled the tips.
Okay.
And the wait staff got about 3/4 of the money, and the busboy, me, got a portion of the rest.
Well, that's a little different because you don't actually interact with the.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. The only interaction I did, of course, is at a beach town, and so here I am, 17 years old or whatever, and the chicks would come in there, and so I was back then. I was kind of an attraction, so it was kind of fun, but I still spilled the water. But but I think though in France we've been there. And I'll tell you, the wait people in France are so professional.
Well, that's because they are professional.
They are professional. I mean, they've been a waiter for 30 years.
Right, but over here, that is only in top restaurants in big cities.
Yeah.
Most of your wait staff in this country are part-time people who are working.
Well, especially in this town, they're college students.
Right, they're transitioning to something else. It's a great way to make part-time. It's very flexible. You can make a lot of cash one night. You can pick up a shift here or there, that kind of stuff, and you can get that kind of job anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. So once you know how to do it somewhere, you're good in terms of credentials. She's gonna freaking ruin it with her well-meaning intentions.
No.
Yeah. She's gonna wreck the tip system, and she's gonna get people fired by trying to raise their wages. And
well, of course, the thing about it is that she's going on this would have to be passed by Congress, right?
Yeah, federal minimum wage.
Federal minimum wage, right? $7.18 right now, or something like that.
Well, there's a. I'm not sure. The 213 is the one she's talking about.
Right. That's the one that's for
if you get tips.
Yeah. So yeah, but she wants to raise that up to $15.
Yeah. Well.
So we'll see what happens.
Stuff it.
Stuff it, baby. So anyway, let me move along here. Just 2 years ago, after a child was struck by a foul ball behind the third base dugout in Yankee Stadium, Major League Baseball mandated protective netting that stretched between the far ends of each dugout in all 30 big league parks. And so apparently this happened just the other day. Again, a little child, 4-year-old child or something like that, 4-year-old girl was struck and injured in a line drive off the bat of a Chicago Cubs center fielder. People inside and outside the sport are asking whether teams should do more and to what extent fans should take responsibility for the safety around them. And of course they showed a picture, for instance, of this one lady with her child baby in front of her, and she's it's behind a net, I think, but still it's pretty close. I mean, the ticket. Now, what they do on the ticket, they say you're not responsible for injuries, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But still, they talk about safety as a paramount problem, but you can't believe that it's paramount, or else they would what they would do, as what one wag suggested, is to go back to the 1930s when the kids would peer through the knotholes in the fence around the around the baseball thing in order to watch the game. So they're thinking about putting up a fence all around the thing, and you basically get to look through the fence.
Right.
So that's, I mean, tongue in cheek.
Right.
Point is, though, that they're now talking about, because this one thing, little girl in the mine shaft thing, this one thing, and she's been injured. I mean, there's no question. But again, you
name a law after her.
Yeah, name a law after. Well, they've already done it once. And I mean, that was one of the reasons that they did the netting as far as they did.
Right.
But it's just when you watch some of the bloopers and some of the things on YouTube about baseball, it's amazing where that ball can go. I mean,
well, look, here's the way I look at it. You got 50,000 people going to a stadium, and you have 100 balls are going to be hit out into the crowd on any given day, and so when the chance of you getting hit is super small, just right off the bat.
Right off the bat, yeah.
That's right.
And of course, one of the things that's interesting is right, super small. But I know that when you see kids that are, say, anywhere up to about 14 years old, they're there with a mitt.
Right, exactly. That's what I was about. The next thing I was going to say
They don't
is
want to catch the ball.
everybody is watching for the ball.
That's right.
Because everybody around you wants to catch the
That's
ball.
right.
So you have like 10 people trying to protect you at any given time.
Right.
So there's that. And then once you factor that against like just the danger of driving to the stadium for those 50,000 people, I gotta believe that the potential for injury is
Minimal.
Exactly.
Well, this is the first time it's happened. I mean, this does not happen every game. Think about it.
Right.
How many games are played a week?
Right.
50 or 100 or
Right,
something. I mean,
right.
and
If people were dropping like flies,
yeah, no,
they would know.
This is so.
Games been played for 100 years.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
So anyway, they're all worried about how the responsibility should be shared, if it's up to the fans or up to baseball owners or whoever. But I just think it was interesting. We don't know how the girl's coming out. Okay. Now, here's another thing that's coming along that I'm just about ready to finish up here. Google's dominance is no longer a sure thing. Now, many times I have said just about, and this article says exactly the same thing that I have said for years, and that is just about the time the market starts to figure something out that you think is a monopoly, that's when the government decides to step in and ruin it for everybody.
Right. Well, that makes perfect sense, though. That's when it's a problem.
Crackdown from regulators comes just as the internet giant's vulnerability is showing up on its own. The Justice Department is preparing a new antitrust investigation against Google and Alphabet. This comes 6 years after a similar probe from the FTC, which resulted in no significant damage to the company that powers more than 90% of the world's internet search activity. Two agencies held recent discussions on who would get to oversee the latest effort, as cracking down on big tech has become Washington's famous, their cause du jour. That, of course, won't assuage broader concerns about big tech's growing clout. Republicans have raised pressure on firms over alleged anti-conservative bias, and the company will find little political cover on the other side of the aisle, where some Democrats are also wary of Google's influence. In any case, regulators would do well to remember that past crackdowns on each behemoths have come only after the good old competition did their job for them.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to see the various backlashes that are all over the place. Even recently, for instance, Facebook has been, and YouTube both have been taken to task. Scott Adams is one of the people that is really, he's got lots and lots of followers, and he's saying, we're being shadow bombed on all this stuff, and there's a lot of this.
Yeah, well, look, this is what I think what's going to happen between now and the next elections. I think that issue is going to blow up.
Really?
Yeah, because I think people like Scott are obviously concerned about the influence of social media. Now, if you think about that for 1 second, what that means is they value some type of knowledge or security regarding their social media. If they value something, then somebody's going to offer it to them. Mm-hmm. That means the situation is ripe for competition and regulation at the same time, which makes perfect sense. I mean, that's why. It's because people are concerned.
Yeah, but regulation, man, that's just not the way to go.
Oh, I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying don't do the regulation because the competition will fix it.
Well, it's interesting because you see already some little competitive things coming up, and there's
You know the regulation will even backfire. The regulation, the Google will get into the regulation.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll rig it so that they get to keep their thing
will.
as long as they abide by certain controls, and they hire an ethics manager and have training about how to be ethical or some bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, no, just let them sink or swim and let them go up against people who in their business model it says we will not shadow ban you.
there's a couple of them out there already.
I know.
And it's not that they're not all that hard to find, but it's but again, there has to be a pretty sizable backlash because
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
I mean, for instance, one of the ways that people are now trying to get monetized is through Patreon,
Right.
which has just been recently set up. And so they don't have to get monetized on Facebook or Google or whatever it is.
Right.
They can get monetized on. People can voluntarily, do the thing there. So that'd be kind of interesting to see how that works out. So I just think that it's
We're not on Patreon yet, but maybe soon.
maybe soon. Yeah, we should be. We don't have quite enough followers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the last thing I've got here, just before we go, is the big thing was the McCain warship move.
Yes, I know. How about that? I read the article,
Did you?
and it could be interpreted both ways. It seems to me like people had enough.
Now remember, as a back in case you don't know, Trump visited Japan, and the McCain warship was in port, I think, over there.
Okay.
And so they didn't want him to see it.
Well, they didn't want him to see it.
Yeah, they didn't want him to see the McCain. And the fake news was even the sailors from there weren't supposed to attend the Trump rally.
I thought that was this incident. That's this incident.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, but what happened was, look, they're claiming that Trump called up the Navy and said, hide that ship,
Right.
and don't let those sailors come to the
rally.
memorial service.
Yeah, right.
But when you read the article, it says that ship and another ship decided not to participate in the Memorial Day events.
Okay.
All the other ships in the area sent men specifically to participate, but the John McCain, they were having a 96-hour leave at the time. So they said, we're not going to send anybody because they're all on leave.
Oh, I see.
Then some of the guys who were on leave decided to show up anyway to the event.
Okay.
But apparently, according to the article, they didn't show up in the proper dress. So that's why they were excluded. Didn't have anything to do with the fact they were from the John McCain.
Huh.
Even though their insignia said John McCain or whatever. So it seems to me like it was all blown out of proportion
I'm
and
sure
just
it
an
was.
attack
I'm
on
confident
Trump.
it was. I mean, I'm confident it was, but it was.
can't
but
see what the
my
hell
point was.
point
It
would he
was all blown up. That's why
Yeah.
I mentioned it because I'm sitting there thinking, are you nuts? I mean, he didn't go to the funeral, but the simple fact that that he would not want to see the ship. Give me a break.
I know, it doesn't make any sense at all to me. It's like you have to believe that he like hates America or something to think that. All right, I got a couple of quick things, real quick. All right, 8 kids won the spelling bee this year.
What? How did they not? What I want to know is, didn't they go get a dictionary and start looking up words?
Okay, so the reason that they can't do that is because they give all the kids lists of words that are potential words for the contest beforehand.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, I knew that. I knew that was the case because, and it's like every time I watch a game show, I imagine that when you get your clearance, you get your, here's your ticket, you can be on the game show. They send you a list of stuff. Like, here, you might want to brush up on your archaeology about...
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this is the same kind of thing. They give these kids in advance a list of potential words. So all you got to do is memorize the list. You don't have to memorize the whole dictionary. You just memorize the list. And that's why 8 kids defeated it this year.
Wow.
And so now, every freaking winner of every spelling bee is going to get asked, so how many kids won your year?
Yeah.
It's like
like affirmative action.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
like, I'm the spelling bee champ. Oh, yeah, well, me too.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, it's just it cheapens
Why would they?
the
Why
whole
would
thing.
they do that though? Why would they give out a list?
Because
like
they're idiots. No, I don't know. I think they wanted people to do well. It's and look, I guess it encourages them to memorize those particular words. But
Well, you remember that there was a movie about the Indian girl who.
Yeah,
I
the bee.
Yeah, the bee. Right. That was interesting. She won it.
Yeah.
But still.
I'm with you, man. You keep going. You bust out a dictionary. You roll the dice. That's it. That word. Here you
Cat.
go. That's right. That's right. Next one, syzygy.
Yeah, right. That's right.
What? Now look, you gotta differentiate it. Give somebody the freaking. These kids work their butts off, and now they're in an 8-way tie. I just can't imagine that that's super fulfilling. I mean, maybe they all get that $15,000 scholarship and the trophy and everything. They actually made several different trophies, like the identical trophies.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess they were anticipating like up to a 5-way tie.
Really?
Because in recent years they've been doing the same. They've been doing it the same way, as opposed to the old days where there was a winner.
Yeah.
So-
well, it's. Yeah, I mean, you'd think you'd have a tiebreaker or something. That wasn't on the
Exactly.
list.
Sudden death, overtime.
Sudden death, overtime.
That's it.
That's right.
But no. So unbelievable. Okay. One quick thing. Science update I have here. Scientists have figured out a way to create oxygen from CO2.
Well, okay, why is that a big deal?
Well, because it was difficult always to rend the oxygen atoms off of the carbon atom.
Okay.
But they figured out an easy way to do it, it turns out,
And?
with just an impact. It turns out if you just blast a bunch of carbon through like a gold foil, a certain percentage of it will just convert to oxygen. It like bends the molecule around and snaps the oxygen, the oxygen atoms bond. You can see this little gift here, and then the carbon atom takes off, and it's a party. But the point is that you don't need water anymore. You can do it with just carbon dioxide, which obviously you're producing. So
Well, the question is, of course, yeah, I guess they're going to have to cover, Arizona with gold foil. And
well, right, exactly. At this point, they're saying it's horribly inefficient and everything. You know?
yeah, because when you say who's doing the blasting, and what's that, and how much power does that take?
Well, exactly. Look, there are problems. Okay, it's not
Yeah,
solved. Okay,
okay.
but the point is
It's not
that,
as easy?
Well, no, not exactly. But you just grab the hold of the molecule and you just bend it in your hand. But the point is that it's just a nice new future potential thing, getting air out of the air, so to speak.
Okay.
And so interesting.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally, my last thing here, little tiny another science update, and that is last week we reported on a pollution solution where some kids had figured out how to make a microbe that eats plastic and then dissolves into water. We talked about that.
Okay.
So I came up with a better solution. Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
They weren't thinking big enough.
I
Okay?
see.
What I'm thinking is we use CRISPR and we genetically engineer some whales to eat the plastic.
Yeah.
And then it's like free food. You're just feeding them basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Good idea. You've done well.
That's it. I'm gonna patent that sucker.
Okay.
All right. All right. That's all I got. That's all we got here today. So, thank you everybody for joining us. Let's see. Who did we have today? Bill and Gene. Hey, Gene. Jody and John. The Gene's corporate sponsor. Yes. Sitting in front of the, yes, I know he does. Look, he looks presidential there. That's right. I put him there in front of the Capitol. So, these tracks brought to you by Kevin McLeod. We thank Kevin for loaning us his material. We really appreciate it. So,
Now remember, this is going to be on YouTube.
yep. YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Libsyn, Luminary, Twitter, and of course Facebook. We will be in all those places. So find us there. Thank you very much. Pick up a copy of this book if you feel like it. And we'll see you next time. I'm Counselor Curtis. This is Jimmy Doane Show. We'll see you at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Bye-bye.